My husband abandoned me on our honeymoon to be with his mistress. The very next day, my mother-in-law called and told me, "You couldn't satisfy my son. Now you'll just have to deal with it." But her face went pale when she found out what I did to her precious baby boy. Esmeralda Moretti and Alessandro Romano, a seemingly perfect couple, were enjoying their honeymoon at a luxurious oceanfront resort on the Amalfi Coast in Italy. The sun blazed over the crystal-clear Mediterranean water and a warm breeze gently brushed their faces as they walked along the shore. Esmeralda, radiating happiness, felt like she was living a dream. Since she was a young girl, she had envisioned this moment, marrying the man she loved and sharing a life full of promise and adventure together. Alessandro, on the other hand, though smiling and holding her hand with tenderness, held a shadow in his eyes, a restlessness that Esmeralda couldn't quite decipher. His kisses were sweet but fleeting, and his hugs lacked the warmth they used to have. Blinded by love, Esmeralda ignored the warning signs, putting his detachment down to post-wedding nerves. That night, they decided to dine at an exclusive restaurant within the resort. The table was lit by candles, and the soft murmur of the waves accompanied the live jazz band. Esmeralda looked at him with adoration, thinking how lucky she was. But Alessandro was preoccupied, checking his phone with a frequency Esmeralda had never seen before. Each time the device vibrated, his eyes lit up with an excitement he didn't show for her. "Everything all right, babe?" Esmeralda asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, honey, just work stuff," Alessandro replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He quickly changed the subject, avoiding any conversation that might delve deeper into his unease. The dinner continued, but the atmosphere had grown strained. Esmeralda tried to shake off the sense of discomfort settling in her heart. She tried to enjoy the food, the romantic setting, but there was something about Alessandro's attitude that put her on edge. Later that night, upon returning to their suite, Alessandro received a call. "It's work. I have to take this," he said, rushing out to the balcony and closing the door behind him. Esmeralda stayed in the room, her heart pounding. She crept closer to the door to listen, something she had never done before. Her intuition, the feeling she'd ignored all night, urged her to seek answers. From the balcony, she heard Alessandro's voice, but couldn't make out the words. His tone, however, was urgent, anxious. The call went on longer than expected, and Esmeralda, feeling a knot in her throat, decided to get dressed and go for a walk, hoping the fresh air would calm her doubt as she stepped out of the room. She saw Alessandro enter, slightly agitated. "You going out?" he asked, surprised. "Yeah, I just want to walk around a little." "Wanna come?" she replied, hoping he would agree. But Alessandro, checking his phone again, shook his head. "I'll catch up with you later. Just need a minute to finish this up," he responded in a tone meant to sound casual, but which concealed something more. Esmeralda nodded, forcing a smile before heading toward the hotel lobby. As she walked, her mind raced. Why was Alessandro so distant? Why the need to keep everything secret? Her gut told her something was wrong, but her heart refused to accept what her mind was beginning to suspect. She decided to walk toward the beach, the place that always calmed her. The moon reflected on the ocean, offering a beautiful sight, but Esmeralda couldn't appreciate it. She sat on the sand, letting the night breeze caress her face. She closed her eyes, trying to regain her composure, but a voice in the distance pulled her from her trance. It was Alessandro's voice calling out to someone. Esmeralda got up slowly, following the sound, her heart racing as she got closer. She hid behind some bushes, close enough to hear but out of sight. "I know, Valentina. I know. I'm here with you, and I'm not going back to her," Alessandro said with a tone of desperation. Esmeralda felt the world collapsing beneath her feet. Valentina, her best friend, the woman who had been her confidant through thick and thin, the one who had stood beside her through life's toughest moments. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "But what are we going to do?" "Esmeralda doesn't deserve this," Valentina replied, though her voice showed no trace of regret. "We've talked about this. What matters is how you and I feel. Esmeralda is strong. She get over it," Alessandro responded, his tone now cold, more distant. Tears began to stream down Esmeralda's face, but she forced herself to maintain composure. She refused to be the weak woman who just crumpled in the face of betrayal. She took a step back, silently walking away, leaving Alessandro and Valentina in their world of lies and broken promises. She returned to the resort, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. Everything she had believed, everything she had trusted, had vanished in an instant. But she wouldn't allow herself to fall apart. She knew she had to think clearly to plan her next step. When Alessandro returned to the suite, he found Esmeralda already in bed, pretending to be asleep. He approached and with a mechanical gesture kissed her forehead. "I love you, Esmeralda," he murmured. But his words now sounded hollow, soulless. The next morning, Esmeralda woke up early, before Alessandro stirred. Her mind had worked throughout the night, and now she had a plan. She quietly packed her belongings, left a note on the bedside table, and walked out of the room without looking back. The note simply said, "I know everything. Don't worry, I won't make a scene. Just don't look for me." The trip back home to Florence felt long, but Esmeralda used the time to think. She had decided to confront this situation on her own terms. No tears, no shouting. She wanted to be cold and calculating because she knew it was the only way to win this game she'd been forced to play when she arrived back at her home in San Nicolo. The first message she received was from Francesca Romano, her mother-in-law. Esmeralda felt a pang in her chest seeing the name on the screen, but decided to answer. "Esmeralda, I hope you're back home." "We need to talk," Francesca said with her usual superior tone. "I'm here, Francesca." "What do you need?" Esmeralda replied, keeping her voice neutral. "I need you to understand something, darling. What happened between Alessandro and that woman is your fault. You didn't know how to keep my son by your side. You didn't know how to satisfy him," Francesca said cruelly. As if enjoying every word, Esmeralda felt rage ignite inside her, but she kept it controlled. "You think so, Francesca? Well, you hold on to that thought because your precious son won't be my problem anymore. Now it's your turn to deal with the consequences." Esmeralda's calmness masked her fury. Francesca fell silent, perhaps surprised by Esmeralda's response. But before she could say anything else, Esmeralda hung up. She knew Francesca wouldn't leave her alone, but she was ready for whatever came next. Later that day, Esmeralda decided she needed someone she could trust, someone who wasn't involved in this chaos. She thought of Marcus Bennett, an old friend from the University of Bologna. Marcus had always been a dependable man, a lawyer with an impeccable reputation and a noble heart. She drove to his office knowing he would be her best ally in what was coming. When she arrived, Marcus greeted her with a warm smile, but his expression quickly changed when he saw the sadness in Esmeralda's eyes. "Esmeralda, what happened?" he asked, his voice full of concern. Esmeralda sat in front of him, feeling that for the first time in days she could breathe. "Marcus, I need your help. But more than anything, I need justice," she said. And for the first time since everything began, she felt like she was regaining control. Marcus listened in silence as she recounted everything, from Alessandro's betrayal to Francesca's call. When she finished, Marcus stood up and walked over to her, taking her hands in his. "Don't worry, Esmeralda. We're going to make them pay. And we'll do it in a way they'll never forget," he promised firmly. Esmeralda looked him in the eyes and nodded. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she wasn't alone anymore. With Marcus by her side, she was ready to face Alessandro, Francesca, and anyone else who stood in her way. The game had begun, and this time Esmeralda didn't plan on losing. Esmeralda woke up early, but this time there were no tears or confusion, just a cold, calculated determination. The betrayal she had suffered on her honeymoon hadn't just broken her heart. It had ignited a flame of vengeance she couldn't put out. Marcus, her unexpected ally, was with her every step of the way, helping her navigate the dark labyrinth of lies and manipulation surrounding. Alessandro and Francesca. Marcus had started investigating Valentina and Alessandro's background since Esmeralda told him everything. What he discovered was more disturbing than either of them imagined. Valentina hadn't just been Alessandro's mistress. She was also deeply implicated in a series of financial frauds involving Alessandro's family's company, a business Francesca controlled with an iron fist. The situation was more dangerous than Esmeralda had predicted, and now she knew she couldn't trust anyone except Marcus. In his office, Marcus laid the documents he had gathered across the table in front of Esmeralda. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a detailed report. "Valentina and Alessandro are involved in a massive embezzlement scheme. They've been siphoning millions of euros from the company for months. Francesca knows, but she's been covering it all up to protect the family's reputation." Esmeralda felt a knot in her stomach. So, all of this was part of a plan to destroy me and take everything? Marcus nodded. But there's more. Francesca doesn't just know. It looks like she orchestrated it from the beginning. She wanted Alessandro to commit to Valentina to ensure she controlled everything, even her own son. The revelation hit Esmeralda like a cold wave. Francesca, the woman who had always pretended to be a traditional, caring mother-in-law, was actually a master manipulator who had orchestrated the destruction of her marriage. But Esmeralda wasn't about to let Francesca get away with it. I won't let this continue. We are going to expose the whole truth. While Marcus continued to investigate, Esmeralda prepared to confront Valentina. The tension grew with every step she took toward the Romano family villa in the hills outside Florence, where she knew Valentina would be. The plan was simple: confront her with the evidence Marcus had gathered and obtain a confession she could use against her and, by extension, against Francesca. Upon arrival, Valentina greeted her with a fake laugh, feigning surprise at her visit. Esmeralda, I didn't expect to see you so soon. What brings you here? She asked in a saccharine voice Esmeralda found repulsive. I came to talk to you, Valentina. There are things we need to clear up, Esmeralda replied in a tone that allowed no argument. Valentina invited her in, but Esmeralda refused to enter the house. She wanted everything to happen in the daylight, with no shadows to hide in. Out here is fine, Esmeralda said. It won't take long. Esmeralda pulled out the documents Marcus had prepared and placed them in front of Valentina. You know what this is, right? Valentina took the papers, trying to keep her expression impassive, but her eyes betrayed her. I don't know what you're talking about, Esmeralda, she lied, though her voice trembled slightly. Of course you do. It's the proof of all the embezzlement you and Alessandro have been doing, all under Francesca's orders. How long did you think you could keep this secret? Esmeralda said, her voice firm and full of authority. Valentina took a deep breath, trying to regain control. You don't know what you're talking about, Esmeralda. Francesca would never do something like this. Everything you're seeing is a distortion of reality. You're just letting your pain get the best of you. Pain? It's not pain I feel, Valentina. It's clarity. It's the realization that I've been surrounded by snakes this whole time. And you know what? I'm not going to sit back while you destroy everything I once loved. Esmeralda replied with a coldness that made Valentina take a step back. Valentina finally showed her true colors. And what are you going to do, Esmeralda? Publish all of this? If you do, you'll destroy not only Alessandro but yourself. No one will believe you. Everyone will think it's just the outburst of a scorned wife, she said with a poisonous smile. Esmeralda held her gaze, undeterred. That's what you think, but the truth always comes out, Valentina. And when it does, there will be no place to hide for you or Francesca. The tension between the two women was palpable, a silent battle where each evaluated her next move. Valentina, unable to maintain her calm, dropped the mask. You were always the favorite, the good one, the one who had everything. But you know what? Alessandro never loved you. He was with me long before you two got married. It was always me, Esmeralda, and it always will be. Esmeralda felt a pain in her chest, but she refused to show weakness. And look how that turned out, Valentina. You have Alessandro, but you don't have his respect or his loyalty. You're just another pawn in French's game, and when she's done with you, she'd discard you like everyone else. The conversation was abruptly cut short when Alessandro appeared in the doorway, his face showing confusion at seeing the two women face to face. He asked, looking from Esmeralda to Valentina. Your wife came here to accuse me of ridiculous things, Valentina said, trying to sound innocent, though her voice had a sharp edge. Esmeralda looked directly at him, her voice firm. I found out everything, Alessandro. I know what you, Valentina, and Francesca have been doing. I won't stay silent. Alessandro tried to approach her, but Esmeralda raised a hand to stop him. Don't come near me. I've endured enough lies. This ends here. Valentina, seeing the situation spiraling out of control, turned to Alessandro. Are you going to let her talk to you like that? Are you going to let her ruin everything we've built? But Alessandro, for the first time, didn't respond immediately. Something in Esmeralda's gaze, The unwavering truth in her eyes made him stop. For years, he had been a weak man, easily manipulated by the people who supposedly loved him. But now, confronted with the harsh reality, he couldn't help but feel that everything he had done was wrong. Esmeralda, let me explain. It's not what it looks like, he began to say. But Esmeralda interrupted him. It's not what it looks like. Then tell me, Alessandro, what is it? What excuse do you have for stealing from your own company, for betraying me with my best friend? What justification can you give me now? Her voice was loaded with controlled pain and fury. Alessandro fell silent, unable to respond. The truth was there, naked and raw, and no words could redeem him. Esmeralda, seeing there was nothing left to say, turned and began to walk toward her car. This isn't over, Alessandro. Not for you, not for Francesca, and not for Valentina. Prepare to face the consequences of your actions. That night, as Esmeralda and Marcus reviewed the evidence they had collected, a controversial idea began to form in Esmeralda's mind. What if we take it one step further? She suggested with a spark in her eyes. What do you mean? Marcus asked, intrigued by Esmeralda's tone. Francesca has always been one step ahead, controlling everyone from the shadows. But what if we pull her out of her comfort zone? What if we make what we've discovered public before she can react? Esmeralda proposed, her voice filled with dangerous determination. Marcus immediately understood what Esmeralda was referring to. You're talking about taking this war public, too. It would be risky, but it might also be the only way to defeat her. Esmeralda nodded. Francesca has played with our lives as if we were her pawns. It's time to lay our cards on the table and show her she doesn't have the control she thinks she does. The decision was made. Instead of keeping everything quiet and in the shadows, Esmeralda decided to take the battle to the most dangerous ground of all. Public opinion. It was a risky move, but one she believed was necessary to finally destroy the empire of lies that Francesca had built. That very night, Esmeralda recorded a video recounting her story, displaying the evidence of Alessandro and Valentina's crimes and revealing the role Francesca had played in it all. She uploaded it to a popular online platform under a pseudonym, ensuring it was widely distributed. The story quickly went viral, generating a controversy that no one could ignore. The impact was immediate. The media pounced on the story, and the public image of the Romano family began to crumble. Francesca, furious and desperate, tried to contain the damage, but it was too late. The scandal had erupted, and there was no way to control it anymore. The tension grew with each passing day, and Esmeralda knew she had crossed a point of no return. But instead of feeling fear, she felt a strange calm. She knew the truth was on her side, and she was ready for whatever came. Esmeralda watched the news on TV, seeing her plan unfold. Marcus, sitting beside her, asked if she was ready for the final battle. Esmeralda, her gaze fixed on the screen, nodded. I am, Marcus. This is just the beginning. The scandal exploded like a bomb, shaking the foundations of the Romano family and destroying the reputation Francesca had meticulously built over decades. Esmeralda watched as the world her mother-in-law had controlled with an iron fist began to crumble. News of the embezzlement, the manipulations, and the betrayals dominated the headlines. And each new revelation increased the pressure on Francesca. Alessandro and Valentina. Francesca, enraged at having lost control, desperately tried to contain the damage. She called a family meeting at the villa, a last-ditch effort to rally her allies, and concoct a plan to salvage what was left of her empire. When Alessandro and Valentina arrived, they found Francesca pacing the main living room, her face contorted with fury. This is all that stupid woman's fault, Francesca spat, referring to Esmeralda with venom in her voice. I thought we could manage her, but she's become more dangerous than I imagined. We have to act fast before it's too late. Valentina, who had lost all her confidence after the public revelation, remained silent, unable to meet Francesca's eyes. Francesca, maybe we went too far, she mumbled. People are starting to talk and we won't be able to stop it. Francesca turned on her with a rage she rarely showed. Are you suggesting I surrender? Never. Not after everything I've done to keep this family on top. Alessandro, who had remained quiet, finally spoke. Mother, maybe Valentina is right. We've lost. Esmeralda has all the evidence. There's no way to escape this. We should look for a way to minimize the damage, but we can't keep fighting. Francesca's gaze hardened at her son's words. I can't believe you're willing to give up, Alessandro. Everything I've done has been for you, so you could have a brilliant future. And now you want to let a scorned woman destroy it all? Alessandro lowered his gaze, ashamed. He had lived his entire life in his mother's shadow, and for the first time he realized the weight that shadow had put on him. It's not just Esmeralda. It's everything we've done. We can't keep pretending we're untouchable anymore. In the midst of this family confrontation, Esmeralda and Marcus prepared for the final battle. They knew Francesca wouldn't give up easily, and they were ready to face anything she tried. In his office, Marcus had assembled an elite legal team ready to take the case to court if necessary. Esmeralda, we're ready, Marcus said as he reviewed the final documents. Everything is prepared for the preliminary hearing. Francesca won't be able to hide anything she's done. Esmeralda, sitting across from him, nodded with determination. I won't stop until Francesca pays for everything. Not just for what she did to me, but for all the harm she's caused so many people. This isn't just about personal justice, Marcus. It's something bigger. Marcus looked at her with admiration. He had watched Esmeralda transform from a woman devastated by betrayal into a relentless warrior. You're right, Esmeralda. This is bigger than us. But I also want you to know that after all this, I want you to have what you deserve. Not justice, but the reward for all the pain you've endured. The days that followed were chaotic. Francesca tried everything in her power to discredit Esmeralda and minimize the impact of the scandal, but the truth was already beyond her control. Marcus's evidence was irrefutable, and Francesca's every attempt to change the narrative failed miserably. The day of the hearing arrived, and the tension in the courtroom was palpable. Francesca, with an arrogant expression, tried to maintain her dignity as Esmeralda's lawyers presented the evidence. But as the case unfolded, it became clear that Francesca was cornered. The judge, after hearing the testimonies and reviewing the evidence, ruled that Francesca and Alessandro should be prosecuted for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Valentina, who had cooperated with authorities in a desperate attempt to reduce her sentence, was sentenced to time in federal prison. Francesca, however, showed no remorse. Her pride and hatred for Esmeralda were evident in every glance she shot her way. But the most controversial part was yet to come. Marcus had prepared a surprise no one expected. At the end of the hearing, he presented a document that changed the entire course of the case. It turned out that years ago, Francesca had signed a secret prenuptial agreement guaranteeing Esmeralda a significant portion of the family assets in case of divorce. An agreement Francesca had never revealed to Alessandro or even Valentina. When the judge ordered the execution of the agreement, Esmeralda became the legal owner of a massive part of the family fortune. A fortune Francesca had fought her entire life to protect. Francesca's face upon hearing the sentence was a mixture of disbelief and rage. She had lost everything. Esmeralda, on the other hand, maintained her composure. She had won more than she expected, not just materially, but in the fight to reclaim her dignity and her life. Leaving the courthouse, the press swarmed to get statements. But Esmeralda simply said, "This is not just a victory for me. It is a victory for truth and justice and for all the people who have been victims of those who believe they are above the law." In the following days, Esmeralda's life changed dramatically. With the fortune she now possessed, millions of euros, not just a few thousand, she decided to invest in nonprofit organizations and projects that helped other women who, like her, had been betrayed and oppressed. Marcus, always by her side, supported her every step of the way. But the story didn't end there. In a controversial move, Esmeralda decided to make an offer that surprised everyone. She bought the family company that Francesca and Alessandro had tried to destroy and turned it into a financial powerhouse much bigger than it had ever been. Francesca, from her prison cell, watched helplessly as the woman she had despised and underestimated became one of the most powerful businesswomen in Italy. The end came with a final confrontation. Francesca, in her last attempt to reclaim some of her old life, requested to see Esmeralda. When Esmeralda walked into the cold prison visiting room, she found a Francesca who was defeated but still full of resentment. "Are you just going to stand there and look at me with pity?" Francesca said, her voice rough and broken. "You think you won, Esmeralda? That you can replace me in the world I built?" Esmeralda, maintaining the calm she had developed over the past few months, sat across from her. I'm not here to replace you, Francesca. I'm here because I want you to know that despite everything you didn't manage to destroy me. And you didn't manage to destroy what was good in this family. Alessandro can rebuild his life away from your influence. Valentina will have to face her own demons. And me, I have found peace. Francesca looked at her with hatred. Peace, after everything you've done? Yes, Francesca, peace, because unlike you, I'm not obsessed with control. I don't need to destroy others to feel whole. I've learned that true strength doesn't come from power, but from forgiveness. And I forgive you, Francesca. Not because you deserve it, but because I need it. Francesca, for the first time, didn't know what to say. Esmeralda stood up, ready to leave, but before walking out, she looked at Francesca one last time. Your time is over, Francesca. Mine is just beginning.